When you discovered the law of attraction, you started to believe anything was possible. Life got better, much better. Now you want more, but it's not working. That's where the Manifest It Now show comes in. If you've been waiting for someone who can teach you the practical application to manifest quicker and easier while having more, turn the volume up, because the dynamic duo, Cassie Parks and Ginny Gain, are ready to teach you how to live the law of attraction like they do. It's time to laugh and learn.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to this week's episode of Manifest It Now. I am here with Cassie Parks.
And I'm here with Ginny Gain.
And our topic for today is, does pushing yourself out of your comfort zone actually work?
Yes.
What do you think? What do you think, Cass?
I mean, I think, so we have some stories that are also like about other people. And so does pushing, other people out of their comfort zone work, and like kind of how that ties in. But I don't think pushing yourself, but I think choosing to leave your comfort zone works.
Oh, that's hugely powerful. That's an awesome way to intro this. So before we get into it, what are you excited about?
Oh man, I'm so excited about the growth in my clients, and just like all these things are opening up and they're going through all this stuff, and a lot of them are uncomfortable, which I know is awesome. And so I'm just excited about everything that's happening in their lives.
That's awesome. Our clients must hate us sometimes when we get so excited that they're uncomfortable.
I know.
Like, Ginny, stop it. This is uncomfortable.
Right.
This is not exciting. I'm like, I know,
this is not good.
know, but yeah. Yeah.
Oh, I love it. And what are you excited about?
I feel excited about some of the inspiration that's been coming with renovating our little camper van. And it's extra exciting because I understand the role that inspiration is playing in some other inspirations. So there's been some decisions in business that I've been going back and forth with and haven't found my groove yet. And then I'm like, okay, do the work, let it go, do your thing. And then all of a sudden I literally got like huge inspiration to do. I got so many ideas. Like I want to do it, and I'm still letting it build a little bit, but I'm like, oh, this is cool because it's a part of this one over here. Because now that decision over there has space, and I know it's like unfolding on its own. I don't need to worry about it, and I can just be over here in this really fun, creative place, which is really good for me.
Yes, which is also, from an LOA's perspective, is you're creating your future in that camper van. Mm-hmm. And so, of course, the answers are coming that weren't ready, to be seen yet, because this energy is being put in this space. That's so awesome. Yeah,
I know. I'm so excited about that.
That's my favorite. Yeah. We should do a whole show on that, because that is, a lot of times it's the way it works, right?
Mm-hmm. So often. Yeah. We can't find and you guys have heard us say this before, but when you're trying to figure out the solution, or you're trying to, weigh the options and the sides and which way do I want, and you just keep spinning. And if you can't think your way to that answer, you got to get out of it.
Mm-mm. No.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's so exciting. I'm also excited about the baby ducks that are coming soon.
Yes.
I know.
So cute.
Yeah. So much fun stuff going on. I'm excited about your camper because you're going to bring it to my house.
Yes, correct. Soon. Hopefully soon.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. All right. So why don't you start, Cass, by telling setting us up with that story that you shared?
Yeah. So my kid and my nephew have obviously been in the pool a lot in the last month. And so my kid is super, swimming is just, there's other things where he definitely doesn't want to do on his own, but or be independent, or, where that is coming. And I think that's true of all people, right? There are areas where we really want to push ourselves, and there are areas where we don't. And so for him, he wanted to go in the deep end with just like not like a life-saving flotation device, just like, a blow-up toy. And
not attached to anything in any way.
Not attached to anything. And I said, you cannot go in the deep end without a life jacket until you can swim the whole length of the pool on your own. He was like, okay. And so then he started working on it, right? And it would be like, okay, let me go. So our pool goes to 3 feet, and then it starts dropping off to 10 feet. And so, and we put like little yellow lines on the outside of the pool so that anyone can see where that starts, because it kind of goes really fast when you get to that point. And so he just started like, okay, will you stand there and like, can I swim to you, right? And it was like 2 feet past the line, and then it was a little bit further, and then it was like, okay, I'm ready to try, just every day a little bit more, like pushing himself to swim, and so now he can swim the whole length of the pool. He can come back, he can, tread water, he can get him, he can play on something and fall off and get himself to the side.
Yeah.
And so that's him. Like every day it's like, let me push myself a little bit further. Like, let me get outside my comfort zone from yesterday. Right. And then there's my nephew who, the first time this summer when he came, we picked him up, and Xavier wanted to go in the pool, and we said, he's like, I don't want to go. I'm like, okay. Like right away, I didn't push him, and I said, okay, that's fine. And then I said, but we do want to go in the pool. So we play outside while we play in the pool. He's like, yep. I'm like, okay, cool. And then we get home, and he needed to try on his swimsuit because my sister didn't think it would fit, and she needed to know if she needed to go on her way over to get him a new one. And I said, okay, but I just need you to put your swimsuit on so that Auntie knows if it's going to fit or not. And he's like, okay. And that's all I did. And then he goes, you know what? I think I will get in the pool.
Oh.
Okay, that's your choice. I know. Right? But there wasn't one time where I said, are you sure you don't want to? Do you really want to? Like, do you want to?
You probably want to.
Energy.
Don't you think you want to? But it's going to be fun.
It's going to be fun.
Yeah.
Yeah. All of those things, right? I just was like, that's fine, because I was like, I want to get in. So we got in, and he had fun, and he stayed in for 4 hours. And I think that was the first, right. Yeah. He didn't want to get in, but then he stayed in for 4 hours.
Yeah, that's quite the switch.
And so I started like noticing, like, I intentionally didn't push him because that's really who I want to be. I do have this belief even before sort of this story that's coming up. So then a couple of days later, we put the kayak in, and so we got life jackets, and we made them both wear life jackets because in case it went in the deep end or whatever. And so he knows he can float in a life jacket, but still for like at least a week, he would not cross the 3-foot line, even though he's 4 feet tall, in a life jacket. Like it was not happening. And I just said, okay, like, you don't have to. I'm like, when, my kid would swim to me, I'd say like, do you want to come? He's like, nope. I'm like, okay. And finally one day he was like, okay, Asty, I'm ready. Can I swim to you in the deep end?
I don't know if you guys got that, but her nephew calls her Asty. That's one of my favorite parts of the story.
He does. It's my favorite thing. And he's like, okay, I'm ready. I'm like, all right, and so then he was playing in the deep end, and over the next couple of days, like in his life jacket, like he's definitely not ready to take it off, but he went out of his comfort zone on his own. And so while that was happening, we also had, my cousin was here. And so her husband, like, my kid and my other nephew, like, loved to be like thrown in the pool and like whatever, like all the fun stuff. Right. And, Easton does not. And, so, her husband would like pick him up, and like, he knew he wasn't into it. So he'd just pick him up and like put him back down in the water. But I could still see on Easton's face, like I saw this look, and I'm like, look, he knows you don't want to go underwater. Like, do you notice how he's setting you down gently? And he's like, but you could still see. And later
you could still see he was very scared.
Yeah, he was very
Yeah.
scared. He was like, this doesn't feel good. Really,
Yeah.
I think even more than fear is like, this doesn't feel good. And so later my cousin's husband was like, I was like trying to push him out of his comfort zone. And I was like, this is interesting. And I'm going to observe, like, because this is like a real life example. And obviously these are two kids that,
I'm
we
trying to
can't apply
manifest
the
anything.
Right. But I said, let's see if this works. If this pushing him out of his comfort zone work, because I know not pushing him works. Right. And sure enough, in the 2 weeks since they've left, like he is no more into being thrown or picked up in the pool or
Yeah.
anything of that. Like he does not said like, let's do that. He is not, if I ask, he's like, nope, nope, nope. Right. And so pushing him out very clearly doesn't help, right?
Yeah.
But giving him the space and total control does. And for me, like, I think I intuitively already knew that, but when I got to observe it, for me, it's because when I start thinking about it in terms of LOA, it's because it's about our own internal guidance, and it's about trusting ourselves, and it's about being in control and getting to make the decisions for ourselves versus being pushed out of our comfort zone.
Yeah, it's such a powerful example of that. And I like that it was kids because it's like not so serious. And so when we're applying this to like, I should, even when we talk about becoming more and stepping into our future selves or our true selves, Cass and I talk about how there's being uncomfortable, but we're not saying push yourself out of your comfort zone. There's a difference in how we were wanting you to step into it, into embracing uncomfort versus trying and pushing yourself out of there. So if Lisa's doing a great job of this actually right now because she's becoming an ocean swimmer. It's something she really wants to do, but she has this fear of sharks, as I'm sure a lot of people do.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so she's doing it very gradually and really honoring the uncomfort, but not saying, well, I should just jump in and, face my fear kind of thing, because that doesn't work. That's like the pushing part. And you're the only one that knows what that, I guess, threshold is for you. And I think being very aware of how you're moving through that process is super important to the progress of it. Like so for Easton, like eventually being able to, if it's a part of what he wants, being thrown in the deep end kind of thing and enjoying that fun. But he's the only one that knows if or when it's comfortable enough. Nobody else can tell him. This is one of my favorite things to say. No one else knows what's right for you at any time, because you're the only one who knows how it feels.
Exactly. I want to highlight that. Like, the reason no one else can tell you it's right is because you are the only one who knows how it feels. Like, is this a fear that I want to step through, or is this a fear that is inside of me? It's just I'm not ready. Right?
And I think it's really powerful to be able to honor that fear within you without blaming yourself. Okay, so without saying I should be farther ahead, or I should be able to do this, or I should be able to go on stage, look how many people can speak, or I should be able to do a Facebook Live, or I should be able to talk to this guy, or, go out to a bar by myself, or not that anyone's going out to bars right now, but but like, and being able to identify and just own where you're at, and then being conscious of like wanting it is enough for now to start, and then being able to say, okay, well, what's a little bit uncomfortable, like exploring the topic for you. What feels uncomfortable but not outside of, I don't want to push myself outside of it, maybe just to the edge.
Oh, yeah. And I think you made an important point with the judgment, which somehow comes later, right? With Easton, there's no judgment. Like, he will look he'll look at Xavier and be like, oh man, he's so brave. He swims without his life jacket.
Oh my gosh, that's such a good point. I love that. Because there's no like, I wish I could do that. Or maybe there's a little bit, but he's not blaming himself. He doesn't think he should.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, go ahead. There's no should. It's just like, wow, that is so cool, which is how I think we really embrace, right? But it's when we start that judgment of, oh, I should be, because it would be easier. He's bigger. He's a little bit older. Like there are all these reasons that like an adult might come up with where they should be able to do that. And instead he's just like, he's so brave, but then it isn't, I should be able to. It's just like, wow, that is so cool. Like he can enjoy that that's a possibility, which ties into one of our recent shows. He's enjoying that is possible, whether he's ready to do it today or, maybe not for 3 years. Like, it's like, oh, that is so cool that that's an opportunity and a possibility.
Yeah. And it's nothing to do. He hasn't learned to take things personally yet or judge himself or where he's at on his path. Like this comes up so much is us seeing the successes or experiences that we want in other people. And we immediately, this is so almost like the kind of underside of selfishness. We immediately make it about ourselves. We see someone else having the relationship or on the vacation or the travel and then it's immediately about us. Well, why can't I have that? Imagine just celebrating that idea, like with the innocence of a child, basically, and remembering that it's a really good kind of point basis to come back to is like, well, how would a child feel about this? Oh my gosh, they'd be celebrating the success of that person, or they would love seeing the joy that person gets from whatever it is.
Mm-hmm. And I think you mentioned selfishness, but I also think it's how we get trained often. Like if I would have said to him, well, Xavier, if what I have been saying for the last month, well, Xavier does it, don't you want to do it? You should want to do it. Like if I'm planting all of those things in this very fertile ground of a young brain, like very easily, that's how you get to that. That's how you grow up and you see someone else's success and you're like, well, I'm older than them. I should have $1 million. I'm this, I should this. I've been in business for longer. I should have more clients, right? Yeah. All those things, because that's what we've been trained to look at, because that's how a lot of times people try to push us out of our comfort zone.
Yes. The idea of comparing to others' experiences. Yeah. And we do this with our friends too. So you guys want to be careful, or anyone, friends, family, business partners, anyone. If you're speaking to someone in a way that's like, well, wouldn't you want to do that? Or comparing, well, did you see that this person did that? What do you think about that? Don't you think you should do that? All of these questions, comments, reflections about other people's experiences have nothing to do with whatever you are going through or experiencing. Your experience only has to do with what you're calling in, where you're at on your path with your awareness. It's literally all about you in the best way.
Yes.
Yeah.
And it is all about you. And if you can make it, you can start to develop that trust and unlearn those should, right? You can, because I think what's also so important is that Easton is fully enjoying the space and the experience, right?
Because no one's telling him, well, in that case, no one's telling him he should be different.
Right.
That's the essence. Imagine the potential to thrive when no one is trying to change you.
Let that sink in, right?
Yeah.
Including you, because it becomes like, as an adult, I think it becomes something, because we've taken it on, as we've heard it, it becomes like, even you're not trying to change where you are, right? Because we always talk, like really accepting where you are is the step before you can really change. Even it's just like, okay, this is where I am, not wanting it to be different, not wishing it was different, not judging yourself for it not being different, but like, okay, this is where I am. What do I want next? Right?
And people get really, so in terms of practicing uncomfort, people get really uncomfortable with the idea of like, if I accept where I am, that means I won't grow. And that's the opposite. I think Cass and I have talked about this many times, but that step of acceptance of where I am comes first. That feeling of acceptance of where you are comes first before you, because that you create the space in that decision and that experience to then move forward. But if you are saying, I don't want to be here, I shouldn't be here, I can't be here, all of that is resistance, and you can't see the next step. You can't call it in. You can't hear that next little whisper, get the clarity of where you're going, because you're fighting what is. You can't get there from there.
Right. And you're trying, in one point, like you're trying to resist what is, and you're pushing against like moving. It's just like, it's a mess.
Yeah.
You can't hear yourself. Like you said, like you can't hear that whisper that's like, okay, take that next step, like, and feel that fear in that moment, and then take the next step. Right.
So do you want to talk about here, just again, highlight the difference between pushing yourself out of your comfort zone versus being uncomfortable?
Yes. So being uncomfortable, I say it so many times a week. I mean, someone should count. Like, you have to get comfortable being uncomfortable, because the uncomfortable it's new. It doesn't feel good. So to take it back to our story, to maybe give it a little more just clarity, it's like, it wasn't comfortable for Easton when he's decided, like, okay, I'm going to swim past this 3-foot mark. You know, that first part was uncomfortable. And so it's getting comfortable with that feeling of like, that's uncomfort, and maybe it is fear and maybe it's not, and it doesn't matter, right? I think one of the problems that we get when we start to feel uncomfortable is we start to, instead of just calling it I'm uncomfortable, we start labeling it.
Yeah.
And when we start labeling it, it takes us down all these different paths, which often lead to judgment and trying to fix it, right? So if I'm uncomfortable, then we go, okay, I'm uncomfortable, I must be scared of success. Or I must be scared I'm going to fail.
Yes. Or you start telling a story about it.
Or this is like the old story, right? This is the old part. And so instead of just, I'm not really giving the definition, but instead of just being uncomfortable, we start to label it. So uncomfortable really is that feeling of newness. It can feel ungrounded because it's new territory. Like, just think about it in the pool, right? It's leaving that comfort of having your feet touch the ground to your feet not touching the ground. It's just uncomfortable because it's new. It's an uncomfortable place because you haven't gotten comfortable there.
Yeah. I think I want to share too that sometimes we talk a lot about like the more you practice it, the easier it gets. And I don't know if uncomfort is the same, because uncomfort always feels uncomfortable. You trust it more.
Yes.
But like this morning I was driving downtown. It was early because I was having some new photos done for my website. My last ones were like 5 years old. And I'm in a new town. I'm going to meet someone who he's a connection, and we had chatted, but I don't actually know him. It's early, no one's up. And I'm driving down the street. The street's empty. And I'm like, oh, this is uncomfortable. And I'm like, that's okay. And that's literally all I did is I felt it for like 2 or 3 minutes. I'm driving along. I'm like, you'll be fine. You've done a million things on your own by yourself. It's all good. And so it's with the experience of doing things more and more and more, you gain that confidence that it's going to be okay, and allows you to relax into it a little more, but it's still uncomfortable. And
yes,
so that's the best way I can describe like getting comfortable with being uncomfortable, is you just don't fight it. You just let it be. And it's amazing. Like, I love having these conversations with my clients, because they're, will share, okay, I was just doing this and I let it be. And I'm like, yep, that's what you do. That's how you do it. There's not really more other than to just be there with it.
Yes. We actually had this conversation yesterday about that. It's really about being present in the uncomfortableness.
Yeah.
And just being more present and letting it be without trying to get out of it or fix it. And at the same time, giving yourself a break if you need it. But yeah, like it doesn't, you never stop being uncomfortable if you're growing. Because every time you grow to a new place, it is uncomfortable again. Mm-hmm. Which is why I think pushing yourself out of your comfort zone doesn't work, because you push and you're in a new place, but you haven't totally learned. So it's often you could just come right back, right? Mm-hmm. And I kind of equate that to doing something like bungee jumping.
Yeah. I did that. You just pop right back up.
Right. Me too. And I've actually done it twice. And the second time it wasn't less scary because I pushed myself out of my comfort zone. Right? Like it was still like, am I really going to do this?
Yeah.
Yeah. And yeah, it's so, just to kind of tie up with our thing, like being uncomfortable is this feeling of it being new and not comfortable. Mm-hmm. Right. And pushing yourself outside your comfort zone, I think, is really, when you push, it's temporary. Mm-hmm. Because when you push, there can be that fall back. But if you allow yourself to be pulled out of your comfort zone, it's more of a step by step and you stay there, right? It's not just like being pushed off the cliff, bungee jumping, and it's over. Yeah. And if you want to repeat that, you have to go back to the top of the tower and do it again.
You didn't grow from that. You didn't all of a sudden become fearless of stepping off that ledge.
Yes, which is, I think, oh, sorry. Yeah, I think that's either a conscious or an unconscious misconception that happens a lot, is like, if I just push myself, mm-hmm. then I'll get more comfortable. Or if I just push myself to do this, then it will be fixed. And it's not, because like we said, you're still afraid the next time you go bungee, even if it's less or whatever in that moment. It was the same for me. It was actually probably worse the second time.
Yeah, because you know what's coming.
Yeah.
Yeah. The other thing I would say about pushing yourself outside your comfort zone is it's likely coming from a mental plan, like an intellectual plan that you have mm-hmm. decided is what, or your mind has decided what you think is best based on something outside of you, which is like we were talking mm-hmm. about. It's not coming from within you, it's coming from outside of you, and comparing to what other people have done, experienced, or where they're at. So when you're like, I should push myself outside my comfort zone, or even if you're like, I want to push myself outside my comfort zone, mm-hmm. where is that coming from? And is it coming from a plan that your head has made up based on outside things, or is it coming from a desire within you? Because that's going to make a big difference. One's going to be a push and one's going to be a step into and being pulled.
Yeah, and I think that's so important, because often, and even like checking in with what Jenny said, I would add, like, check in if you just think pushing yourself out of your comfort zone is going to get you something.
Yeah. It's true. I remember, mm-hmm. so when I was younger and I was playing lots of different sports, and I didn't have this conversation with my parents until more recently, like when all of this stuff was done, but I had options to like play, provincial rugby, go try out for that team, go try out for the provincial soccer team, or there was like play basketball in Toronto versus just in the smaller town Barrie. And I made some different choices around there to not go, because I remember it being extremely uncomfortable. and they had kind of after commented back saying, we saw that would be uncomfortable for you, and we didn't, we were going back and forth whether we should push you and encourage you to do that and take that experience, but we really wanted you, your decisions to come from you. And I think it's such a great reflection, because I do believe, even though, so if they had pushed me at that time to go and do that thing, I may not have felt like it was, because it wasn't coming from me and I didn't have the space to make that choice for myself, the experience wouldn't have been as powerful for me because I didn't choose it, and so, mm-hmm. so I do feel very, there's a part of me that's like, oh, I wish I accomplished more in athletics and if I would have been pushed more. But then I'm like, no, that it has to come from within me. all those experiences that they gave me in order to make my own decision has created such an empowering place within myself. That's like, I get to choose for myself, and I learn to trust a lot of those decisions. So that's another example of it could go both ways. What happens if you're pushed versus what happens if you're given space.
And I think we were talking before the call, an important point I want to make about that story is like, you would, you said it, but I want to highlight it. Like, you would have been untethered to the experience because you didn't make it. If you were pushed into it, the whole experience now has this different tone, this different feel, because the internal first decision wasn't yours.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So when it's going to be powerful for you guys to start to pay attention to, like, if you ever have that thought, whether it's a kid or a friend or a parent, hey, mom and dad, you should get out more, like,
right.
Just be aware of giving space for people to step into something when they're ready versus trying to push them into something that you think is right for them.
And I want to wrap up with this, like, to make this point. And the reason is, like, it just feels better. But really what happens when you push is, like, they can't hear their own stuff. Yes. So often, even if it's what we want, when you're pushing against it, like, it's pushing against their own trust in themselves and their own, like, internal stuff. And so it's clouding that voice. It can't be heard. And even when they do it, it doesn't feel as authentic and as certain and as grounding, because it has the taintedness of us trying to push. And so just know, like, that experience is better, and likely someone will get there faster if you just love them where they're at.
Yes.
Including yourself.
Yeah, exactly. Just like, so to wrap up with Easton and you saying, okay, you don't want to get in the pool, that's cool. And then him choosing to go in and spend 4 hours in the pool, the whole experience is going to be different for him because he made that choice when he was ready. Yeah.
Absolutely.
I love it. Anything else, Cass, you want to add?
No, just to, like, let go of that. I have to push myself out of my comfort zone. Because you can trust, if you grow, you will get out of your comfort zone.
Yeah. Natural part.
Yes.
All right, everyone. Well, we will see you guys next week.
Bye.
Go be awesome.
Thank you for joining us on the Manifest It Now show, where you learn how to leverage the law of attraction to manifest your dreams. Now that you're inspired, share the love and review us on iTunes. While you're there, remember to subscribe.